Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I remind the House that last year I personally donated a five-figure sum, bought a pickup truck, filled it with first aid supplies, and drove it with other friends and colleagues to Ukraine and donated it to the brave soldiers of Ukraine. So my support and reform support for Ukraine has been rock solid, Prime Minister, throughout. And it is important that this House is united, which it is, Madam Deputy Speaker. And last week, when the 28-point plan emerged, we rejected it immediately. Just yesterday, Prime Minister, I was with a Ukrainian delegation and we were talking specifically about the leverage that the European nations has with regard to the frozen assets, the majority of which, of course, are here in Europe. So would I urge the Prime Minister, amongst all of the noise, to utilise that leverage, because that, I think, is one of the most powerful negotiating points that the West has against the vile dictator Putin.
Imagine, if you will, the pristine wood-panelled corridors of Westminster. Usually, the only thing erupting here is the price of a cafeteria sandwich or a particularly dry debate about fishing quotas. But today, the Richter scale is off the charts. A political earthquake has just hit, and Sir Keir Starmer is right at the epicentre, clutching his briefing notes as the floorboards give way. Richard Tice hasn't just rocked the boat, he's capsized the entire fleet, sent the captain overboard, and is currently doing a victory lap on a jet ski. We are talking about a move so audacious, so cheekily explosive, that it has triggered a full-blown meltdown inside Labour headquarters. The era of polite letters and sternly worded subtweets is officially over. Reform UK is done talking, and they've swapped the debate lectern for something far more tangible. The message is simple, sharp, and potentially devastating. If Labour, the Liberal Democrats, and the Greens love illegal immigration so much that they're willing to sacrifice your community for it, then they can jolly well house the migrants themselves. Tice has turned the tables in a way no one in the London bubble saw coming, delivering a direct challenge to the very doorsteps of the councils that have spent years shouting refugees welcome from the safety of their gated gardens. It is a brutal political reversal, and folks, the gloves haven't just come off, they've been shredded. Quick favour, if you're loving this, hit that subscribe button. And over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second, and means the world to us at the British Report. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show. Now let's look at the mechanics of this madness. Richard Tice and Reform UK, fresh off some rather spicy local gains, have begun using their newly acquired council power to do the one thing the Tories were too scared to do and Labour never imagined possible. They are blocking migrant placements in working-class areas that never consented to them and redirecting that pressure straight into the heartlands of the pro-migration parties. It's like a political game of pass the parcel, except the parcel is a massive bill for hotel accommodation and a complete overhaul of local services, and Tice has just stopped the music right over a Labour stronghold. The strategy is devastatingly logical. If a council campaigned for asylum hotels, if they waved those colourful banners and patted themselves on the back for their virtue, then they should be the ones to shoulder the responsibility. Suddenly, that lofty rhetoric has become a very real, very expensive policy. As the ink dries on legal paperwork prepared by reform-aligned council leaders, plans are moving at a blistering pace to offload migrants into safe Labour and Lib Dem constituencies. This isn't just a spicy press release, it is happening. The silence from Labour's front benches is so loud it's practically deafening. Starmer, caught totally off guard, has gone into full crisis mode. The trigger for this rapid escalation wasn't just a bit of Tuesday morning frustration, it was a deep-seated sense of betrayal. For years, Reform UK and millions of ordinary British citizens watched as Conservative ministers talked a big game on border control while effectively doing nothing. Meanwhile, Labour councils were quietly filling hotels, army barracks and even holiday parks with thousands of illegal migrants. When local communities complained, they weren't listened to, they were smeared. If you worried about your GP waiting list or your child's school place, you were branded a bigot or a xenophobe. You were told to be quiet and embrace the change, while the people telling you that lived in postcodes that haven't seen an asylum hotel since the dawn of time. But after years of elite indifference, Reform UK is putting the power back into the hands of the people, and the establishment's empire is looking a bit structurally unsound. The most damning line of the week came when Tice declared, if you voted for it, you can live with it. With those 8 words, the political tables didn't just turn, they were flipped over and smashed. The first major battleground in this new war of attrition is Lincolnshire. Reform UK's newly installed council majority has already started implementing its migrant-blocking agenda. They aren't just saying no thanks to the Home Office, they are actively identifying other councils where these individuals should be sent, and they aren't picking names out of a hat. The targets are specific: Labour towns that have repeatedly boasted about their commitment to diversity and open borders, Green Party enclaves that waved refugee flags while rural infrastructure collapsed, and Lib Dem strongholds that demanded more migrants, provided of course they didn't have to house them themselves. These councils are now being told, quite bluntly, it's your turn. Richard Tice isn't bluffing. He's already enlisted legal teams to launch preemptive strikes, stopping the Home Office from dumping migrants into reform jurisdictions and rerouting the logistical pressure onto the virtue signallers. It's the political equivalent of returning a faulty product to the manufacturer and demanding they deal with the mess. This move has taken the establishment completely by surprise. It's reminiscent of how US governors like Greg Abbott flipped the script by busing migrants to Democrat-run sanctuary cities. Tice is applying that same logical consequence model to the UK, and the results are immediate. Mainstream media outlets are scrambling to find a way to make this look illegal, but the legal teams at Reform seem 2 steps ahead. Labour MPs are panicking. Within minutes of the announcement, chatter inside Westminster exploded. Keir Starmer reportedly called an emergency meeting with senior Labour figures to contain the fallout. But how do you contain a fire that's already reached the curtains? While Starmer fumbles behind closed doors, Reform UK is out in the open, marching forward. Their plan goes beyond just shifting people around. It's a full frontal assault on national immigration policy. They're calling for the scrapping of the Human Rights Act, withdrawal from the European Court of Human Rights, and the use of military-style tent facilities instead of luxury hotels. Tice's logic is hard to argue with for many. If the British Army can live in tents, so can people who break into our country. It's a hardline stance that is resonating like a bass drum in a quiet library.
Well, I can tell you that actually this has been building and bubbling for at least 9 days. I was aware at the beginning of last week of not 1, but 4 separate leadership teams for 4 separate cabinet ministers.
Name them. Wes Streeting, Shabana Mahmood, Ed Miliband, who else?
I'm going to leave that to your expertise, Julia. But,
David Lammy.
I'm going to leave that to your expertise, but I can tell you that this has been building. This is not just a sort of a one-day element of madness from someone in the number 10 bunker, but it is a bunker. They are completely hunkered down, and they know that this is, at some point, this is coming. And we're heading towards a budget in a couple of weeks' time, which is very, very likely to be the last budget by this Chancellor and the last budget that's enjoyed by this Prime Minister.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. Change is coming in this Labour government over the next 6 to 12 months, big time.
Labour's leadership now finds itself trapped in a classic damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. If they speak out against Tice, they expose their own hypocrisy, admitting they want the migrants, just not in their own backyards. If they stay silent, they look weak, complicit and utterly disconnected. In that silence, Reform UK grows stronger, with Nigel Farage waiting in the wings, fueling the fire from the shadows. This is no longer just a protest movement or a bunch of angry blokes in a pub. This is a national uprising unfolding in real time. Councils that once proudly displayed refugees' welcome banners are now nervously reviewing the legalities of Reform's threat. Can they block it? Can they refuse? They might find they have no choice but to face the reality they've been voting for. The truth is brutal. Starmer never expected anyone to actually fight back. He believed Reform would just shout from the sidelines while Labour quietly reshaped the country. But Tice has flipped the narrative. Instead of playing defence, he's launched a full-scale political blitzkrieg, and Starmer, Ed Davey and the rest of the pro-migration elite are suddenly playing a very desperate game of catch-up. As the fallout from this explosive redirection policy spreads like wildfire, the political establishment is in a tailspin. Labour insiders are scrambling to contain what's being described as the biggest grassroots backlash in over a decade. The idea that working-class towns should no longer bear the brunt of migration has lit a fire under communities that have felt ignored and manipulated for years. This shift is flipping the entire script of Britain's immigration debate. Councils once proud to virtue signal from a distance are now being forced to deal with the consequences of their own rhetoric. Behind the scenes, the panic is palpable. Reports suggest Starmer is struggling to control his own party's messaging. Labour councillors in pro-migration areas are reportedly furious at being thrown under the bus by a leadership that never prepared them for this level of accountability. Some are even whispering to journalists that Starmer's silence makes them look exposed. Once hailed as the adult in the room, Starmer is starting to look more like a man who's lost his car keys in a dark car park. The Liberal Democrats and Greens are in no better position. Ed Davey's party now faces a political boomerang. As Lib Dem controlled councils are earmarked for relocations, those green and pleasant land slogans are starting to sound a bit hollow. Voters want answers, not platitudes. While chaos grips the traditional parties, Reform UK is consolidating power. Tice and his legal team are rolling out a nationwide strategy to protect councils from forced placements, using media blitzes and task forces to keep the issue front and centre. Unlike the establishment parties, Reform is moving fast. Leaked Home Office briefings show serious concern within Whitehall as civil servants scramble to assess the legality of Reform's defiance. And let's not forget the elephant in the room, Nigel Farage. His influence looms large, and although he's acting as a strategist, his fingerprints are everywhere. He's the kingmaker, advising on tactics while Tice takes the spotlight. This synergy is terrifying to their opponents and energising to their supporters. Together, they're crafting an unapologetic doctrine rooted in the belief that Britain's silent majority has been silent for far too long.
Is there another Labour leader that you would prefer to be battling against at the next general election other than Keir Starmer? Would it be better or worse for you if it was Wes Streeting or Shabana Mahmood or David Lammy or Ed Miliband?
Oh, I think Keir Starmer's doing a splendid job for Reform. He really is being most helpful. We're most grateful. I think Ed Miliband would also be most helpful to Reform with his eco-zealotry and his obsession with net stupid zero. Again, I think that would also help Reform and people realise the madness of their plan. So, yeah, this is all to play for. We're working hard. We're looking forward to the May elections. 5,500 candidates, Julia. It's an absolutely massive one. And there's a lot to be done. But we're pushing on. I will, in fairness, credit where credit's due, Julia. There's some good news by the government today. They've announced they're going to abolish the Police and Crime Commission.
Yeah, I was just going to get to that.
Yeah, give that responsibility to elected mayors. I think that actually is a sensible move. Finally, there's something where we can. And
you approve of that move on cost basis or accountability basis? On what basis?
On accountability basis, it makes it easier for voters to know that actually the mayor. Lots of people are sort of questioning, why do we need a mayor? Why do we need a police and crime commissioner? Well, if you merge the two, then it's clearer the accountability and the responsibility. And chief constables do need to be held to account. They can't just essentially have no accountability. And so I think this is a sensible measure. Look, it's an experiment that's been tried for the last, whatever it is, decade or so, and it hasn't worked. So
the press is struggling to keep up. Attempts to downplay the story are backfiring as readers flock to alternative media. Social media is ablaze with clips and interviews. The political class is being dragged into a fight it hoped to avoid, and the tide has truly turned. People want accountability, and they want leadership. Reform UK continues to rise, registrations are up, donations are pouring in, and whispers of defections from other parties are growing louder. The political centre is no longer holding. What began as a backlash is now a full-blown realignment. Tice's move has lit a fuse that is burning straight toward the foundations of the establishment. Ordinary citizens are taking sides, and they are choosing the side that actually seems to have a plan. The Conservatives are exposed after years of broken promises, and Labour is fractured under internal pressure. Farage's possible return hangs over Westminster like a storm cloud, and on the ground the results are visible. Protests, leaflets, and a flood of new candidates. Reform UK is becoming a disciplined, grassroots insurgency. Legal battles are looming, and the courts may soon decide who holds the ultimate power over migrant housing. If reform prevails, the consequences will be seismic. It would empower councils nationwide and create a political landscape no one in Westminster anticipated. We would see a patchwork system of local resistance that would fundamentally alter how immigration policy is enforced. Such a ruling would not only validate Tice's confrontational strategy, but would embolden dozens of other councils to follow suit, accelerating the collapse of centralised control. The Home Office, already stretched and politically exposed, would be left scrambling. This prospect has sent shockwaves through Whitehall. Senior officials privately admit that this could unravel decades of governance norms, shifting power away from unelected bureaucracies and back toward locally elected representatives. For Reform UK, this is exactly the point. Tice argues that communities should have the final say on issues that affect their safety and resources. If that principle is upheld, it would be one of the most significant decentralisations of power in modern British history. As momentum builds, the mood of the country is changing. What once felt like resignation has turned into defiance. Working-class communities that were told they had no voice are seeing proof that resistance is possible. Reform UK's message is spreading because it reflects lived experience, rising housing costs, strained services, and a sense of cultural displacement. The establishment's attempts to brand reform as extreme are failing to resonate with voters who feel they have already endured the extreme consequences of inaction. Every attack from the legacy media only seems to harden support. The more the elite dismiss public anger, the more legitimate that anger appears. Keir Starmer now faces a defining moment. His strategy of caution and silence is no longer sustainable. Any decisive move risks alienating one wing of his party, yet inaction risks losing his base to reform at an accelerating pace. The longer he hesitates, the more the narrative slips through his fingers. Reform UK, by contrast, is operating with total clarity. They understand that political windows don't stay open forever, and they are moving to exploit this one fully. With council power, legal momentum, and grassroots energy, the party is positioning itself not just as a protest option, but as a credible force. What happens next will determine the shape of British politics for years to come. Whether through the courts, the ballot box, or the sheer force of public opinion, the battle over immigration has entered a new and volatile phase. The rules have changed. The lines have been drawn. One thing is certain, the era of quiet compliance is over. The status quo has been shattered, and the assumptions that governed Westminster for decades are being tested simultaneously. The political ground is shifting beneath Starmer's feet, and there is no clear path back to stability. The country has entered a period of reckoning, and the outcome won't be decided in a backroom deal, but in the open arena of public confrontation. Thank you for watching.